This is Kihnu, a small island in the cold Baltic Sea. A place where snowstorms blanket the entire island in white, while the soil is so poor that it cannot produce enough food to feed 300 people. Unable to rely on the barren land beneath their feet, the strong men of Kihnu had to turn to the sea to survive. They left, leaving behind an island of women, children, and the elderly. The women of Kihnu had to be mothers while also taking on their husbands' work through those long months of absence. That extraordinary resilience gave rise to Europe's last matriarchal society, recognized by UNESCO as World Heritage. Media around the world still call this place the Island of Women, yet the people of Kihnu repeatedly reject that description. So what is the truth? What is life here really like? The answer may surprise you. Kihnu lies quietly in the Gulf of Riga, off the western coast of Estonia. From the nearest point on the mainland, it is just over 10 kilometers across the sea, while from the city of Pärnu, the distance is only about 41 kilometers. Yet the moment the ferry leaves the harbor, the sense of the modern world gradually begins to fade, because ahead lies an island of just over 16 square kilometers that has remained outside the world's hurried pace for hundreds of years. Surrounding Kihnu are Manija Island and more than 50 small uninhabited islands. Seen from above, the entire archipelago resembles pebbles, gently scattered across the deep blue sea by the hand of nature. Kihnu has more than 36 kilometers of coastline, enclosing sandy beaches, pine forests, and small villages. The waters surrounding Kihnu are relatively shallow, with countless hidden reefs beneath the surface that have forced sailors to approach the island with caution since ancient times. Across the island, enormous boulders lie scattered like remnants of the Ice Age. The people of Kihnu once quarried these stones to build breakwaters for the city of Pärnu, pave roads in Tallinn, and even transport them as far as Riga. The terrain here is surprisingly simple. The entire island resembles a thin sheet of silk spread across the sea, with its highest point reaching only nearly 9 meters above sea level. So low that on mornings of thick fog, the boundaries between land, sea, and sky seem to dissolve into one. Life on the island is concentrated in 4 small villages. Lemsi is the island's gateway to the sea, home to its busiest harbor. Linnaküla is like the heart of the community, with the school, medical center, church, and museum. In Saare in the north, the post office, shop, and communal spaces meet the essential needs of the island's residents. Farther south lies Ruutsikula, where the lighthouse quietly watches over the Baltic Sea day and night. At first glance, Kihnu's peaceful beauty can easily deceive those visiting for the first time. But on an island with no high mountains or terrain large enough to provide shelter, people are exposed to almost the full force of every storm that comes in from the Baltic Sea. Winter is when nature reveals its harshest face. Snow buries the fields, icy winds lash the rooftops, and the waters surrounding the island can freeze into a white expanse stretching all the way to the horizon. When the ferry is forced to stop operating, residents can only rely on flights or wait until the ice becomes safe enough to drive directly across the frozen sea. But even when the ice melts, life on the island does not become any easier. Poor soil and limited resources once made it impossible for Kihnu to produce enough food for itself. At one point, half of its grain and hay had to be brought in from outside to sustain both people and livestock. It was this scarcity that pushed the men out to sea, where they spent days searching for a livelihood. Even the houses bear the marks of this struggle against nature. Instead of standing close to the shore with windows facing the ocean, homes are set farther inland, sheltered behind pine forests as though seeking a shield against the storms. For the people of Kihnu, the sea is both the source of life that sustains the entire community and a constant danger they have been forced to learn to live with. And yet, this harsh land possesses a beauty that is difficult to look away from. When winter passes, the fields gradually fill with green grass and wildflowers. Pine forests stretch toward the coast, and scattered among all that green are wooden houses painted red and yellow, like vivid strokes of color across a countryside painting. Following the narrow road south, a white lighthouse standing 29 meters tall rises at Pitcairn Point. Few people know that it was cast in iron in England in 1864, then dismantled piece by piece, transported by sea, and reassembled directly on the island. Throughout the 19th century, it was the island's only means of communication and navigation with the mainland before an underwater telephone cable was installed. Even today, after more than a century exposed to the storms of the Baltic Sea, the lighthouse has preserved its original form. It still stands there with unwavering strength, guiding the men home from the ocean and becoming an enduring symbol of the iron will of the matriarchal women on this windswept island. Perhaps only when standing atop the lighthouse, looking out over the beauty of the forests and the Baltic Sea stretching below, we can truly understand why such a harsh land has managed to hold on to its people for so many generations. But humans are not the only living beings that have learned to adapt to this harsh land. Right on the barren, windswept dunes, where the salty air of the Baltic Sea can drain the life from almost anything that tries to grow, rare Eryngium maritimum can still be found. Their roots reach deep into the gravel and stone, quietly blooming like proud treasures listed in the red data book. Farther inland, the barren grasslands are home to the native Kihnu sheep, living witnesses to history that have endured more than 3 millennia of cold. In return for that resilience, their thick wool provides warmth and the raw material from which Kihnu women weave the traditional red-striped kirt skirts beside the fire during winter. Life continues as herds of shaggy Scottish Highland cattle appear along the beaches. They move slowly through the cold, but that very ruggedness turns them into diligent gardeners, clearing away reed beds to make room for thousands of migratory birds returning to nest each spring. And along the fragile boundary between land and ocean, gray seals appear, like sacred witnesses to the island's history. Since the 19th century, they were a vital source of sustenance, part of the harsh livelihood that forced the men of Kihnu to risk their lives on the frozen sea. They spent months drifting among fractured sheets of ice, hunting seals to bring precious resources home to their families. The meat provided food through the winter, the hides were made into waterproof coats, and the thick fat was rendered into oil for boots, protecting the hunters' feet from freezing in the sub-zero cold of the Baltic. The animal died so that human life could continue. Today, these intelligent creatures are strictly protected beneath the sea. And every spring and fall, hundreds of species of migratory birds return to the shallows and grasslands around Kihnu, transforming this small Baltic island into a resting place on journeys stretching thousands of kilometers. In a land where cold winds, frozen seas, and scarcity constantly challenge life, nature still quietly sustains creatures bearing the distinctive marks of Kihnu, forms of life rarely found anywhere else. If you were on the island, you would see only women and children. They do almost everything. So where have the husbands and fathers gone? We will explain that in the next section. Every morning, Kihnu does not wake to the hurried sound of city traffic, but to the lively roar of sidecar motorcycles starting up and ancient dialect songs rising from wooden homes. Dressed in their bright red-striped kirt skirts, the women of Kihnu begin the day at an astonishing pace. They ride sidecar motorcycles while finding time to knit, their needles moving rapidly, even while waiting for the ferry or walking leisurely along village roads. Kihnu's soil is barren and full of sea sand, yet those hands still patiently tend rows of potatoes and rye, and care for sheep to maintain a self-sufficient food supply for their families through the winter. By midday, Kihnu slows beneath the aromas drifting from its small kitchens. The smoky scent of grilled Baltic herring blends with the aroma of soft rye bread, food that has sustained generations of Kihnu people amid the cold winds of the open sea. As soon as the meal is over, the island returns to the unfinished work of the day. Behind the windows, the steady clicking of knitting needles continues like the ticking of an invisible clock, weaving warm red-striped skirts for husbands and children. In summer, when its UNESCO heritage status draws more than 30,000 visitors to the island, the women skillfully turn their own yards into rustic cafes, transforming traditional wool weaving and traditional gifts into sustainable sources of income that help the island support itself. Yet real life on Kihnu has never been a romantic film. It is a raw struggle for survival whenever storms from the Baltic Sea sweep across the island. When strong winds tear large sections from wooden roofs and water surges onto the porch, the women have no time to cry or wait for help from the mainland. They have only themselves. In red-striped skirts soaked with water and covered in mud, they carry heavy wooden boards themselves and hammer in each nail to reinforce the barns and houses. They have to keep the home intact for their children and wait for their husbands to return. And immediately afterward, the women of Kihnu begin another quiet battle to prepare for the freezing winter that is about to arrive. In the sub-zero cold of the Baltic, seal fat is not something for display. It is a vital layer of protection. Mothers can be seen sitting quietly beside the fire, melting blocks of thick fat before carefully spreading it across the family's leather boots and coats. The completely waterproof properties of this marine fat prevent melting snow and freezing seawater from soaking through to the skin, protecting the feet of children walking to school and the island's elderly from tissue damage caused by frostbite. This thick, strong-smelling fat was once black gold, used to waterproof clothing and warm homes through nights without electricity, turning the harshness of nature itself into a source of warmth that helped them endure the frozen season. As the sun sets and darkness covers the island, smoke once again rises from the scattered wooden homes. On Wednesday and Saturday evenings, many families still keep the tradition of preparing a pot of hot porridge for dinner, while Sunday afternoon brings the richer flavor of meat soup, like a farewell to the week that has passed. But Kihnu is not only about quiet labor. When Saturday night arrives, the island's only beer bar lights up, and the entire island seems to erupt with accordion music and folk dancing that lasts until 3 o'clock in the morning. There, young and old raise their glasses together, washing away the exhaustion of long days spent keeping the island going in isolation. When the final song fades, Kihnu returns once more to the soft sound of the sea wind. But in exchange for those peaceful Saturday nights and the homes that remain standing after the storms, this island has had to send its men far away. For many years, international media have often called Kihnu the Island of Women, and even Europe's last matriarchy. But if women truly hold power on this island, why must the traditional first visitor to enter a home during Jolud be a man? The truth behind it is far more complicated. In reality, the ratio of men to women on Kihnu is almost equal. At certain times, the proportion of men has even been slightly higher than the Estonian average. The image of an island of women comes from the fact that the men had to leave the island for long periods in order to earn a living, and the reason for those departures is tied to a rather ironic chapter of history. In the middle of the 19th century, Kihnu's small and barren land could no longer support the community. So most residents left the Lutheran faith and converted to Orthodox Christianity in the belief that this change might help them receive farmland from the Russian Tsar. But the land they had been waiting for never came. When hopes of finding additional livelihoods on land disappeared, the sea became their only path to survival. Men went fishing, hunted seals, and worked as sailors aboard international ships. Some voyages lasted for months, leaving behind villages made up mainly of women, children, and the elderly. Those long periods without men created the distinctive division of responsibilities in daily life that we saw in the previous section. Perhaps it was these images that led international media to describe Kihnu as Europe's last matriarchy. But if you ask the islanders themselves, you will receive a very different answer. In reality, there was never any reversal of power. During the months when their husbands were away, wives became accustomed to managing life on their own. When the husbands returned, the two once again shared the family's work and decisions. Even during Juulud, it is the men who go from house to house as the traditional first visitors and offer their good wishes, because their presence is believed to bring good luck, while also affirming the place and connection of men within the Kihnu community. They have never viewed their community as a matriarchal society. In fact, since 2009, the island's mayor has always been a man, while the local council has consistently included relatively balanced participation from both genders. That difference has even created a very distinctive balance. After long journeys away, men often bring back to Kihnu new techniques, materials, and influences from the outside world. Women, meanwhile, tend to preserve more closely the customs that have survived for generations. For that reason, cultural expert Mayor Matas believes that a more accurate term for Kihnu is matrifocal, a community centered around women. While the men go out to sea and bring livelihoods home, the women maintain the rhythm of life on the island and preserve the cultural values of their ancestors. Two different roles, but always moving together like the two oars of the same boat. Without either one, the island could hardly have survived the long seasons of rough seas that have lasted for hundreds of years. And although they take on different roles, both the men and women of Kihnu share in preserving a culture that still lives on through traditional clothing and the island's festivals. When you arrive in Kihnu, it is hard to look away from the bright striped wool kirt skirts worn by the island's women. From shearing the sheep and spinning the wool to dyeing and weaving the fabric, everything is made by the hands of the people who live here. But what makes these skirts most distinctive is their colors, because Kihnu women seem to weave part of their own lives into them. Red is associated with youth and joy. Darker shades appear during periods of mourning, while blue is often worn in old age or when a woman is gradually emerging from a period of loss. Even the apron carries its own meaning. Only married women are allowed to wear one. Kihnu men, meanwhile, wear the thick knitted Troy sweater with its distinctive blue and white patterns. A single sweater can take nearly 200 hours to complete, and its patterns have long carried symbols believed to protect men from the dangers of the sea during their voyages. For the people of Kihnu, clothing is therefore like a wordless language that tells the story of the person wearing it, while also expressing pride in the culture of their ancestors. And whenever festival season arrives, all of this is displayed in an even more vivid and colorful way. As spring returns after months when the Baltic Sea has been covered in ice, the clicking of knitting needles can once again be heard across the island. The Knitting Festival is held as a celebration dedicated to the hands that have preserved and continue to preserve Kihnu's identity. Elderly women patiently sit at their looms, working, while showing younger generations and visitors each stitch and technique passed down from their ancestors. By the end of June, all of Kihnu gathers around large bonfires built from old boats. This is midsummer, celebrated on the night of June 23rd, when Kihnu enters the longest days of the year. Since ancient times, the fire on that night has symbolized light and life. For the people of Kihnu today, it is also a time when those living away from the island return home to gather together amid singing and dancing that continues until dawn. The Baltic Herring Festival and Sea Festival tell the story of the livelihoods and skills that have helped the people of Kihnu survive at sea for generations. The festivals honor the fishing industry that sustained the entire island, while the strength and endurance of seafarers are recalled through competitions such as stone throwing, boot throwing, and carrying another person. On Kihnu, no ceremony is more sacred than a traditional Kihnu wedding. For 3 days, the entire island witnesses a woman stepping into a new chapter of her life. But that special story will be revealed in the next section. The spiritual life of the people of Kihnu is sustained by both the Orthodox Christian faith and ancient beliefs that have existed for nearly 1,000 years. At the heart of Kihnu stands St. Nicholas Church, originally built in the 18th century as a Lutheran church, but later transformed with the onion-shaped domes and iconostasis characteristic of Orthodox Christianity. During services, women always sit on the left and men on the right, following an order that has quietly endured for generations. From the moment a child is born, faith begins to accompany their life. According to an old custom, the mother does not wear her apron again until her child has been taken to church for baptism. Yet, religious faith has never erased the ancient beliefs of their ancestors. The people of Kihnu still tell stories that the seals offshore are the soldiers of Pharaoh who drowned in the Red Sea and were transformed into seals. The enormous boulders scattered across the island are also believed to be dwelling places of spirits or meeting places for witches in the darkness of night. In the past, Kihnu women often went to Vanakirikumegi, the remains of an old church destroyed by fire, to perform rituals in hopes of conceiving a child. They believed that the land still carried a sacred power capable of granting life and children. The cemetery here is regarded as a place just as sacred as the church. People always remain completely silent when entering and never visit after sunset. After the age of 60, many women begin preparing their own burial clothes by hand, even knitting gloves for the people who will dig their graves on the day they leave this world. To them, this is not pessimism in the face of death, but a calm preparation for the final journey of a human life. On Kihnu, the doors of homes are rarely protected by heavy locks. If the owners are away, they simply place a wooden stick behind the door as a simple message to their neighbors. Each family also marks its own symbol on boats, farming tools, and everyday objects, both to prevent confusion and to tell the story of a community that has lived together in mutual trust for generations. And now we return to the most distinctive ceremony mentioned earlier, the traditional Kihnu wedding. For 3 days, amid runic songs, dancing, and crowded banquet tables, the entire community witnesses a young woman stepping into a new life. On the very first day, the bride appears in a way very different from what people might normally imagine for a wedding. Instead of wearing the bright red associated with youth and joy, her kirt contains black stripes, quietly mourning the single life that has just come to an end. On her head is a long white wig covering her face, decorated with winding red patterns believed to protect the woman from evil on her journey to her husband's home. When the bride arrives at her new family home, the UIG is removed and replaced with the headscarf worn by married women. From that moment on, she is also allowed to wear an apron over her kirt. No announcement is needed. Just a few changes in her clothing are enough for the entire community to know that the girl of yesterday has now become a married woman. The singing and dancing continue until the third day, when the final sweet milk soup is brought to the table as a sign that the wedding has come to an end. The guests gradually return home, the songs begin to fade, and the bride remains with the hope of a new life ahead. Today, as the modern way of life gradually reaches Kihnu, traditional 3-day weddings are at risk of disappearing. That is why every time one of these weddings still takes place, it brings renewed hope that Kihnu's long-standing customs will be preserved for a little longer. Modern life has also drawn many young people away to the mainland or to other Nordic countries to study and seek more stable career opportunities. Many eventually choose to remain there, leaving behind wooden homes with fewer and fewer lights glowing in their windows and a community that grows older with each passing year. The island school has tried to keep younger generations closer to their homeland by bringing the Kihnu dialect, music, and traditional crafts into the classroom. Yet even those efforts have struggled to stop a growing number of families from choosing to send their children to the mainland for their education. One by one, the younger generation leaves, while those who carry much of the island's cultural memory and identity gradually approach the end of their lives. And as the distance between the two generations continues to grow, what Kihnu risks losing is not only its population, but also the thread that has carried the island's culture through hundreds of years. That is why those who remain on Kihnu are trying in many different ways to keep that cultural thread alive. One of the most prominent is Mare Matas, the woman who appeared earlier in the video. As chair of the Kihnu Cultural Space Foundation, she has spent many years preserving traditions that are gradually fading with time. She brings them into conservation projects and finds ways to introduce Kihnu culture to the outside world, while at the same time trying to protect the island from waves of mass tourism that could disrupt its traditional way of life. But Mare Matas is not the only person trying to preserve what their ancestors left behind. In small homes across the island, renowned artisans such as Rosalie Karjam and Eli Karjam continue working tirelessly beside their bundles of wool and looms, patiently passing down every stitch and every way of combining colors to younger hands. Because they understand better than anyone that one day their own hands may no longer be strong enough to keep weaving, and the songs they once knew by heart may survive only in memory. The story of Kihnu is a testament to the strength of a community that has persistently adapted to one challenge after another from nature. When the barren land could no longer provide a sufficient living, the men had to spend long periods at sea in the Baltic searching for a livelihood, while the women remained behind to carry the responsibilities of the family and keep the rhythm of life on the island from being interrupted. In this way, the people of Kihnu created a distinctive way of life that became part of humanity's cultural heritage. Yet, like many other isolated places, Kihnu's greatest challenge today no longer comes from the sea, but from the curse of an aging population. How can the island encourage young people to return and remain connected to their homeland? How can Kihnu welcome more visitors without losing the old rhythm of life that has sustained its culture for hundreds of years? Perhaps these are questions not only for Kihnu, but for every small community trying to preserve its identity in a world that never stops changing.